Baby, you give me ice and fire.
All right, so forgive the slightly weird camera angle. I hung my camera off of cord going from my garage door opener that's next to my fuzzy dice. All right, so once you've got a guitar body that you're happy with, that you've drawn on paper off of a center line, you're gonna wanna have some templates on hand. In our case, we're doing bolt-on necks that are based off of Telecasters or Stratocasters. So you usually wanna have some of these templates already. It's worth the money to buy some from whoever. This one's a StewMac a Telecaster, and then this was an eBay thing I think years ago that came with both of these. And use these type templates to kind of get your basic neck pocket shape in the proper place and everything, and kind of the general size of a guitar, and then you can do whatever you want. This one, the county line, is kind of our Stratocaster style setup. So basically what we used was we started out with Stratocaster template, and my wife, she does most of the drawings and designs, so she basically just tweaked what she wanted, and this is what you end up with. You end up with a template made out of MDF. This is 1/2 inch. You can get 3/4, which can be useful for other things. We'll talk about that a little bit, how it's nicer to have thicker templates as well. So once you have your guitar design and you like it, you want to trace it with tracing paper, and you can cut that tracing paper one out. We don't cut anything out of our pads. All of our designs from previous guitars, all of our guitars are in this pad actually. So then you're gonna trace out, you're gonna cut out your trace paper, you're gonna lay it onto your MDF, draw it out, including anything you've got, any center line. Always have center lines drawn, front and back. I haven't done a back one on this yet, but always have a center line drawn. And then you're gonna wanna have a place where you can screw this down to something when you get actually into routing. That's gonna screw onto the body wood. So in this case, you always wanna screw it in where there's gonna be holes already, or where there's gonna be pickups, so that you're not putting unnecessary holes in your body. So in this case, we did it in the neck and where the bridge is gonna be, so this screws right on here, and then you can route out with your bearing bits. It is really nice to have clear ones, transparent ones. The only thing is I'm not really a big fan of thin ones. This is a 1/4 inch. They work well, but they're limiting, you know, basically that's gonna be just the thickness of your bearing. It doesn't give you any leeway. If you're trying to do a shallower route into the wood, you're gonna route right through your template. So this is kind of limiting, whereas if you use 1/2 inch, you can see how I can ride up and not have such a deep route versus like that. And even thicker, if this was a 3/4 inch, I could have the bearing riding up there. So I like having thicker templates on hand. So it's always good to take your templates that are thinner and literally just route out a whole MDF template. It's good to have backups, because what can happen is, which actually happened with this one, this is the cavity cutout for a Strat that we ended up using for this guitar. I think I ended up throwing away, it was an older bit. Once these little holders here that keep your bearing in place, once they get worn out or they won't stay tight, this bearing will ride up. And as you can see here, I didn't really notice at first as I was going along, but the bearing rode up and it totally ate into my template here and basically ruined it. So I can still use this template for neck pockets and some other stuff, but it's kind of getting munched. I had a question from someone recently where they were just asking basically about the routing process when you're using templates and bearing bits. And I've got a handful of bits that I've acquired over some time. I really like these style because they're shorter. They don't dip into the wood as much. This one's really good for starting out neck pockets and stuff like that, just to basically get into the wood enough so where your template can then come off the body. So for example, usually what I like to do is before I cut any of the body out, it's still just a block of wood with a center line drawn on it. I'll screw this down, and you can see I've screwed these down wherever I can, because this is gonna have a whole pick guard over it, so it doesn't really matter if there's a couple holes under there. So you'll screw this down to the wood, and you'll take whichever bit is gonna work out. This one actually fits inside, so I probably did start with this one at the time. So you'll get going all around. You'll route out just the depth of this bit here, and then once you've got that, you can take this off, and now your bearing is going to ride along the body all inside of here. You don't need a template anymore. And this one, obviously I took a humbucker template and put on here, because at the time when the bit did this and munched all this, it also did it to the body, unfortunately. So we just ended up putting some humbucker routes in here, which is good because then it gives you options. You can have 2 humbuckers and a middle normal strap pickup, single coil, or whatever you want. Now you've routed out in here, depending on how deep you want to go, you can use one of these. These are very common. This is from Ace Hardware. You'll see this style. I think it's Diablo is the name. But you can see here, this bit bottoms out. I would need a pretty thick template. So once you've got all your cavities in the neck pocket, which is usually 5/8 or a little bit deeper, once you've got all that cut out, then I usually like to take it to the bandsaw after the body's been drawn on, trace from the template, cut it out as close as you can get with whatever you're using. A bandsaw is what I've got. You can use a bit like this and go around and get it started. Once again, take it off and then keep going. You may end up with some ridge lines when you do that you have to sand out. This one's been lightly sanded already. I also have a routing table that I've made in the past where the router bolts up inside, just like the ones that you buy at the store, and then you can use a big fat guy like this to accomplish the whole body in one shot, which is ideal. It does depend on what you're doing. If you're using walnut or sapel or some kind of harder wood, these can be pretty scary. They can start to really grab the wood and get skippy and just holding your router with a smaller bit on harder woods like that. But if you've got, you know, mahogany, ash, something that's not too hard, then you can use a big fat bit like this. And my son just walked in, so he's probably gonna make some noise. But you wanna just get as much types of bits as you can. Another really useful one is a radius bit like that, where in this drawing, I don't know if you can see that, but right here there's a little dip that we're gonna put in right here just for a little styling. So I gotta make one more template that'll be however big, that just has one little swoop in it, so that this radius bit can come in and just get that out of there. So these are really nice to have, and I order a lot of my stuff from toolstoday.com, and all the radius bits. This is I believe that's an 1/8 inch radius for the outside of like an old style Telecaster. And then finally, another common one you can find at Ace Hardware or any hardware store is a fatter bit that's a little shorter, and that's really trustworthy to use when you're doing all these cavities and anything you're maybe semi-hollow underneath a drop top. This is a drop top actually. They're just more stable. They don't flex or vibrate as much. They're good to have, so I like having those as well. A good companion to have with one of these is its opposite, so that you can start routing out. Once you're routing out here, and once you get to a certain depth, you might not be able to get that bit low enough. So then you can flip this over and you can go in and just go the other way, if that makes sense. I don't use this one that much, but it does come in handy. So yeah, the moral of the story is, start with a center line on your paper, draw out from the neck pocket down, create whatever guitar you want to, trace it out on tracing paper, cut the tracing paper out, trace it onto some MDF, cut that out, and you want this to be as nice as you can. Any little bumps and mistakes that are in your template are gonna end up in the side of your guitar as well. Really take the time and perfect that. And if I were you, if you wanted to make guitars at least as a hobby and do it more than once, get a template set. If you're looking to do glue up necks like Gibson style, get those template sets, whatever you wanna do. These ones here, the Strat one I've had for 5 or 6 years, it comes in handy all the time, especially just for tracing templates or whatever it is.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby, and twist myself at the spine. Don't wanna overthink it, baby. It's just twist your body. but my appetite. Don't leave me here